All right, this is our lab. There's a lab that we're going to continue throughout not the course, but this particular section, and we're going to keep building on it. All right. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to go inside switch 0, and we're going to go ahead and put in common commands. And now these common commands, you know them already. The administrative commands that we did on the routers, the same on the switches, except for I think NTP. It's not on there. And the new is that you need to put an IP address for the switch. You assign an IP address for the switch, and you assign a default gateway. Why? You assign an IP address, so actually, if you're within that same subnet, you can manage that particular switch. But if you want to manage the switch remotely, Cisco says you need to configure a default gateway in order to get into the switch. Not through it, you can ping. That's not a problem. We'll go through without problem. But in order to get into the switch, you need to give it its IP default gateway. So those are the two newer commands that we're going to do. But we're going to do all the basic common administrative commands. And then you'll see those two commands right there. And I'll show you what it looks like. All right. I'll see you inside the lab. All right. We're inside the lab now. So let's go ahead and do the basic configurations or the common configurations that you would do on your switch, which should look very familiar to you from the routing portion of it, because all you see here we did in the routing, okay? But obviously there's slight differences. Well, there's a major difference from a router to a switch, but or layer 2 switch especially. But what is going to change is the default gateway, because switches are given a default gateway. So you can access them remotely. And this is a recommendation by Cisco. So not only do you assign them an IP address so you can get inside the switch, but if you're remote to the switch, you should also have a default gateway so you can access it. Let me be very clear on that. So you can access the switch. Not so you can ping through the switch or go through the switch. You'll be able to go through the switch, but to get inside the switch, you need to have, if you're remote to that subnet, you need to have a default gateway. Recommendation through Cisco. All right. So let's go ahead and do our enable. EN, obviously. Clock, set, and let's just use the time that's there. Let's not make up anything. 5/9. You just put whatever time. As long as you follow the format, you should be good to go. And then 11 August. And I'm just tired of that day. Let's go into the future. Okay, and then we'll do a config T, host name, S1. Need to make that change right here. So this will be, instead of R1, that will be SW1. Okay, so that will be different. Well, it says S0, so let's call it S0 instead of S1. Okay, there you go. So SW0. There, oh yes, the clock. We must set the time zone that we're in so the router knows, or the switch knows, okay? I'm in Florida, -4. That is the new thing for the certification. And then we get into our regular stuff, enable password Cisco, enable secret student, and we understand these through our previous lectures, what they do, okay? This is the, to go from user mode to privilege mode. Obviously, the secret password will take over because it is encrypted. We're going to do the service password -encryption, tab our way through there, and then we'll create our banner, MOTD, and we'll use a $ampersand. There you go. Welcome. If I can spell it, welcome to SW0. Right? And we have to finish with the same delimiting character. All right. Then the new one, LLDP instead of CDP, LDP run. We gotta make sure that's turned on. Even though I put LLD, it knew that that's the only command that starts with those letters. So LLDP run turns on the link layer data protocol, so you can go ahead, or discovery protocol, so you can. It works just like CDP. You're gonna discover your neighbors, right? But now throughout different vendors. All right, let's go ahead and do the domain, IP domain, -lookup. And remember, I said previous lectures that this, you don't need to type this. This is on by default, but just so you know the command. IP domain, -name, las.com. IP name, -server. We got to point it to a server. 192.168.1.1. All right, and then now we got to put in a username. Now we don't have to, but I want to give you this extra stuff. Doubtful that they may ask you something like this, but if they do, now you know. And this is something that you do in real world. Username, L Diaz, privilege, and then I have administrative privileges. Password, I'm gonna put 0, and then I'll put Cisco. And 0 means plain text. I really don't care because it's going to get encrypted with this guy anyway, because that's what this does. It encrypts any plain text passwords, past, present, or future, okay, in the router. All right, so now that we have a host name and now that we have a domain name, now we can actually start doing for configuring for the SSH. So that's why we do the crypto key, generate, RSA, and then 512. I always keep it at the default, don't make it any bigger, so nothing needs to crash. Then we start tweaking our SSH authentication retries. Obviously, we're going to do 3. 3. And then IP, SSH, timeout, 120 seconds. And I'm going to put a version. As you can see there, the version, it is an optional command. All right, you can use 1 or 2. And you can see right there, it's using for SSH version 2. So we're using version 2 anyway. Then we get into our lines. And again, this should be something you should know. Line, con 0, password, Cisco, and login. Now remember, this is where you would stop in the login prompt there. You just say login and then hit enter. But since we have a username, we want to use a username. So we're going to say login local. So that way we use the local username and password in order to get inside the switch. All right, we want to put the exec hyphen timeout, 0 minutes, 0 seconds, or 10 minutes, 15 seconds, but know that the first number is minutes, the second number is seconds, and that's after that times out, that means that you get kicked out of the switch. In this case, 00, you'll never time out, which is not what you're going to do in the real world. All right, you're going to have a timeout, and you're always going, before you leave your station, you're always going to log out of all your equipment anyway. And then you have the login synchronous, and like I said in the past, this is a nuisance command. That way when you get feedback from the switch or the router, your typing does not get interrupted whatsoever. Okay, now we've done that, we'll do a VTY, line VTY 015, and again, you can open up only 1 telnet line, you can open up 5 telnet lines, you can open up however many telnet lines you want. It's completely up to you who's going to be accessing this particular equipment. So I just open up all the lines that it has. And then we go password Cisco, and then login, local. Now, these are my telnet lines, and we configured SSH. So one of the things that we need to do is do transport input, and if you do a question mark, remember we put all because it was a lab, and we wanted to be able to telnet and SSH into it just to show both. All right, but what you're going to do, but in a real world scenario, you just do SSH because that's really what you want. Okay, so all. All right, do WR. That's kind of the basic stuff. That's the same as the router, but the difference is this right here. All right, that with a switch, we have obviously more ports than you would on a router. Okay, and you assign an IP address to a VLAN. So we're going to assign the IP address to VLAN 1. That way we can access VLAN 1. Because by default, and I'll show you here, I'll do a do command, do show VLAN. The native VLAN, right? And I'll extend this a little bit more so it's better to read. There we go. Everybody by default belongs to VLAN 1. All right, this is called the administrator VLAN, the default VLAN, the admin VLAN, but everybody belongs to VLAN 1. So VLAN 1, and it's recommended that you change it to something else other than VLAN 1. So, but we're going to leave it as is, just for simplification. And what we're going to do is we're going to assign the IP address to VLAN 1. So we're going to do int VLAN 1, enter, and you can see you're in an interface. Look at that, interface configuration mode. All right, and you're going to do IP address, but you did type int. 192.168.1.253.255.255.255.0. Now, why did I choose this number? Somebody say, "Hey, Laz, why are you choosing these numbers?" Because when I do my scheme, I always use the last available IP address for the default gateway anyway, which is 254. Okay, so since I'm assigning an IP address to a networking device or an internetworking device, I start then going 253, 252, 251, and so forth. All right, but you're not done here because VLAN 1 is off. So what we're going to do is, the interface, no shut. So we turn that on, you can see that VLAN 1 is up. But now, yes, you can access it if you're within that subnet. If you're not within that subnet, you're going to have to create, or you're going to have to put a default gateway. So we're going to exit once. So from global configuration, you'll put IP default -gateway 192.168.1.254. And that's it. That's it. So if you were to look at if you were to scroll through here, show start, you see all the basic configuration that you would normally do anyway on a router. You do on a switch. Minus maybe one command, which is the NTP update calendar. All right, you see all your interfaces, which we'll be getting later on into the course. You see the interface for VLAN 1. There's the IP address. The IP default gateway. You have your banner, your line con, your line VTYs. All right, so all that is already set up. All that is already set up. So if you were to plug in a PC to VLAN 1, which we'll do later on in the course, because we're going to build on this particular network, we're going to go ahead and start testing different things that we have configured. All right, so these are your basic configurations. I'll be uploading this so you can have this information as well. Okay, so you have no worries. But again, practice, practice, practice. These first couple commands should be no difference. The only difference that we did really was this right here by putting a default gateway and int VLAN 1, IP address, to give an IP address to the actual switch. All right, I'll see you guys outside the lab. All right, that wasn't difficult at all, was it? You were very familiar with these commands. You did it in the router. The only difference was the IP default gateway, which is the router, obviously, and the IP address that you assign to the interface of VLAN 1 so you can manage that particular switch. All right, and you saw that I told you that we went from 254, because this is the gateway, to 253, and then this will be 252 for 251, what have you. But it's a different scheme that we have on the VLANs, right? Because this is not 192.168.1 dot whatever. That's going to be for VLAN 1. The management VLAN, the IT personnel are ones going to have access to that particular one, where everybody else will be on a different VLAN. Okay? So very simple. I'll see you in the next one.